Good evening.
There we
We're
go.
here. Yay. We're live. Happy Thursday.
Happy
Thursday.
Thursday. And we're recording this to watch later.
Okay, let me
Mhm.
give me 1
Hi,
second.
ladies. How is everyone?
Good, Regina.
Doing well.
Friday Eve, so we're great.
Friday
Friday
Eve.
Eve. I love it.
Friday Eve. Awesome. And we are so blessed to be here another Thursday. We have had an interesting November, I'd say. So I don't know about you all, but this cold weather this week really did me in. But back to my self-care. I made sure I went for a walk every day. I wrapped up in my winter attire and got out there and walked.
Winter.
Me too. And it was cold.
It was cold. But just a little plug. I hope everybody is still out there doing their daily self-care challenge. We've got 11 more days or maybe 10 more days of the self-care challenge before we check in for a final analysis of how it went for everyone. But tonight we're excited. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We have a lot of special guests. I'm super excited. And our topic tonight is blended families. And this came from last week. We ended up the conversation last week on the topic, which hasn't actually happened before, but it worked out really well. We talked about marriage last week and it led into blended families. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. And first we'll introduce ourselves. And I'm going to introduce one of our special guests, and then Regina and Jeanette, you all can introduce yourselves. And Juanita and Lisa will go after me. So I'm Cara Dunstan, and tonight I'm excited. I have another one of my Poly sisters, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, that we all attended. All of our guests that well, not all of them. We have another guest. Well, we got great guests. Well, 3 of our guests attended high school with me, and one tonight is Tanya Robinson. We're excited to have her here tonight. She is one of our high school classmates. Juanita, Lisa, Tanya, and I went to the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute.
Oh, thank you, Miss Carr. It's so great to join you ladies. I look forward to this interesting discussion and see where it leads us.
Awesome. And I also have to say that Tanya and I found out a few years ago that somehow we're probably related down the line. Our families are connected down in Virginia. And so we're cousins too, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole.
And I was about to say, I hope this is not a Virginia connection too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then, well, Juanita and Lisa, you all want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Lisa Marner, and I've known Cara, Tanya, and Juanita since 9th grade at Poly. I know Regina from our kids went to preschool together. And Jeanette, I know Jeanette through Cara, and I know Jeanette's ex, Richie. And hi, Marcia.
Hi, it's Marcia or Marcy.
Marcy. Okay, sorry about that.
That's all good.
I am Juanita Tubman. Just met Jeanette through this, but I love her energy and spirit. You already know my Poly girls. Geez, I'm having a mind blank. Regina and I have a HOCO connection. People hear me say HOCO all the time, but it's Howard County, but we have a HOCO connection. And nice to meet you, Marcia.
Hi, so I am Marcia or Marcy. Jeanette and I met through our children. They were like 3rd grade, 2nd, 3rd grade. We're also sorors, part of the village. So we have been connected, and I'm in love with Principal Harris, as we call her.
So Marcy introduced herself. I'm Jeanette, and I'm so glad to be on this show with all of you. Of course, I've known Marcy forever, and I just this is a ride or die, because I called and was like, Marcy, I want you on the show. She was like, I'm coming.
I'm in the middle of dinner. This is
Right.
like this is like Zoom number. I don't know, I lost count. I think I'm at 5, but it's all
Right.
good.
Wow.
I
I know
know.
I'm coming, I'll be there. And so have known Cara forever. Before I got married. That's a whole other story for another show. And then had the pleasure of meeting Juanita and Lisa and Regina and now Tanya. This show is blessing me, and I hope blessing many other women in so many ways. These connections are great. The conversations are great. And so I'm just glad that we have another Thursday to do this with each other. I will give our disclaimer as I do every Thursday to our guests that are listening. We do not profess to be experts. We are just having some good girlfriend talk, loving on each other and just sharing information. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you have joined our virtual living room and hope that we are all a blessing to any of our listeners. So
Yes.
I'm ready for our topic.
Well, Regina.
Hi, everyone. And so you see my background, and this is part of my self-care because I love the beach and the water, and I have missed it for so long that I was like, oh, let me pretend like I'm there. And my name is Regina. I've known Cara forever. I call Cara my sister. And I've met Jeanette, and I've met, just all the girlfriends and sisterhood. And I'm so glad to meet you tonight, Marcy. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. And I'm like excited about this topic.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in like we do every Thursday night. And anyone who wants to start, I will say that when we picked this topic last week, I kept thinking, well, Andre and I don't have any children, and we were never married before, so we don't have any blended family experiences. Then I realized I actually am a product of a blended family. My father,
Yep.
I was getting ready to say, what, Cara?
Right.
my parents divorced after 40 years of marriage, and my father is remarried. And so I guess I am a product of a blended family, but I'll talk about that a little later. But if anyone else wants to share their experiences about parenting as a blended family or being a product, let's jump in.
Well, I'm going to start with, I am the blended family. We call ourselves the names of 3. I am Regina Clay. My daughter is Elisa Drake. My son is Antonio Hardy. So we are the blended family, but of course, we don't really operate that way. It's brother and sister and all of that good stuff together. And before I had Elisa, I also have another, my son, I call him my son. He was my stepson, but he came into my life and has continued to come into my life. And his mother just recently passed like 3 years ago. And he had me, I went to the funeral and he had me come up. He was like, Mom, I need you to go and I need you to read the obituary. And I was like, why am I doing all of this? But like, that's just the way it is. And that's just the way the way it is. So that's what I got for my blended family situation.
Well, I'll jump in. So I have a son from my first marriage. We're divorced. I remarried. We have 2 girls now, me and my current husband. And I guess this whole blended family thing, I think initially it was difficult. And I think it was difficult just even getting to the point where you even get to a blended family. Because I think, like, I remember when it was a reality that I was about to get divorced. And so, we all go into marriage thinking it's forever, but then it's not forever. And then you think, okay, so what's next? You know, do I spend all of my time focusing on raising a child on my own? Do I also try to find my slice of happiness in the midst of all of that? And then what happens if you meet someone else? I met my current husband, wasn't looking for a relationship, but that's what God had in store for me. And I met my current husband when my son was 2. And so, you know, he's pretty much been in my son's life, pretty much his entire life. But my son's father has always been in the picture. And I always kind of thought, like, how do you navigate your ex-husband and then your current boyfriend, then fiance, and then husband? Like, I always thought that was kind of this taboo thing. Like, whatever you do, make sure they never get a chance to be alone and talk. Like, I mean, honestly, that's something I think that really scared me. And the funny thing was, when they met each other from day one, they got along. And I didn't understand that. And I'm like, you two are talking, like, why do you even get along? But I think that was my baggage because, you know, I'm like, okay, so Eric, you're supposed to be with me. Like, you're supposed to be on my team. Like, you two aren't supposed to get along. Not that they're supposed to be fighting or anything, but it's like, you know, it wasn't that Will Smith, Jada, and what's her name, the mom, Trey's mom. It wasn't that kind of relationship, but they did get along. And so honestly, I had to work through that. And figure out a way for, I guess, all of us to kind of come together. But I'll save the rest for the rest of the conversation.
I will jump in and just make a couple of comments. One is, I think it's beautiful that the men got along because that was necessary. Your husband was co-parenting also another man's son. So it was important for them to have a good rapport. So I think that that's fabulous. Like, that was a blessing. You know, God was like, this is a gift for you. You don't have to worry about that. And so a lot of times it doesn't work out that way. You know, there's animosity and tension, and it causes all types of stress and strife. So you were very fortunate with that, Lisa. That's very good. As it relates to blended families, like Cara, I was thinking, I'm not really, you know, I don't have a blended family. And so I thought, I can't say I have a blended family in the sense that many of you will probably speak to. I can say that my ex-husband has me married. And I will say that over the past, I don't know, 4 Thanksgivings at least, that we don't eat dinner together, but we definitely have dessert together. And, you know, play games. I remember the first time that happened, my nieces and nephews were like looking at me like, really? But you have to, those things are necessary. I mean, and when we separated and divorced, my daughter was fairly, you know, she was 13, she wasn't a baby, but those things are very necessary when you have children, if you want to keep them whole. I think that, you know, if you can blend the families to some degree, you know. So I guess I do sort of have like a little blend, you know, a mix to some degree.
You do have a little mix there, I would
Yes.
say. Yes. So so all of our experiences are different. I married at the time a gentleman who had 2 daughters, both by different mothers. One mother he had married to early in life, and the other he was in a relationship with. And so, and then he and I had a son. We got together, had a son, got married. So our blending was not a smooth blending. I didn't get to connect with the mothers, not because it would have been an issue for me, because Lisa, I would probably be like, like the dads are, I'm good. I'm okay. So we want to connect. I'm good. The situation didn't lend itself to that, and that was because of the relationship that my husband had with the women. One of his daughter's mother, the religion, I think, was a barrier in terms of their connection and how she was raising the child, and just lifestyles, if you will. The other situation with the younger daughter, because there was such contention between my husband and that mother at the time, there wasn't a place for blending. So early on in our relationship, the girls were there a little bit, and then there were times when they were in and out of our lives. So it was never a total blending, and never really a smooth transition that really ever happened. And to Jeanette's point, I will say that it's important. I think that it does happen, and it just makes for a easier, smoother lifestyle. Now, for me, his daughters lived what I call different lifestyles, and it wasn't my lifestyle. And so I also knew it wasn't a lifestyle that I intended to ever live. That could be another conversation another time. So, Jeanette knows that I've adopted her sugar mugger word. So they lived a sugar mugger life. That's not who I am. So I can only play in the sandbox to a certain level that it's good play. And so if it's not good play, and it's not good for my spirit, and not good for the child that I was raising, then that's not the lifestyle. But I think what also could have happened differently, if I really look back at after these years, is in terms of having more dialogue with my husband, because I don't know that he knew how to maneuver that. Not always something that you have the skill for, or where do you go to, what page in the book is that? Let me work this blended family with these two different young ladies from two different mothers, from two different worlds and parenting styles, as we maneuver our new life together. Older parents, I might say. We didn't connect until we were older parents. I didn't have a child till I was older. He had had children previously. And just trying to talk and walk that through, I think could have been done differently. And perhaps there could have been a different kind of connect and relationship with the five of us that never really happened. And then my husband since passed away. And so I don't have contact with his daughters, and subsequently my son doesn't have contact with his sisters. But what my son has is a village. He has a village of sisters that he has his ride or die girls that he, bar none. I mean, so he has that, and that is the beauty of him in meeting Jeanette and his daughter. I mean, my son has just become, he's just part of that crew, and it's not like he missed having sisters, and there was never really a relationship that came together.
Wow.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. And I love the way that you described it, Marcy, because because you described it positively, right? Which I think is very, very important, no matter how it may turn out, no matter what the end result would be. You described it, and I'm sure that you didn't start off describing it that way, and you have gotten to that point. But I mean, I just think that that's really, it's really healthy and could help someone else for real, for sure.
So you need to say, so my husband has since passed 4.5 years ago. And, so it didn't, all of those situations at the end, and, death and dying is a whole nother piece when you're losing family members. Let's talk about losing family members in a blended family. That's probably a whole nother segment that we could unpack, at some point, in terms of, how does that go, and how do you make that go in a way that, you have to stay whole for self. Through all this process, you have to be able to survive self and be okay with how you do what you do and how you get to the place that you get to. And it's a process. But I think because the connection that I had with with my husband and the connection that I have with my son, and also having a village and having a strong foundation allows you to get through that and unpack it in a way that you have to stay whole.
I think the other point you made about having the tools to be able, like you said, your husband didn't really have the tools to navigate a blended family. That is so important. Like, we don't know what we don't know, right? So now, we are all mature women, but who, like Lisa said, who knows you're going to marry into a blended family, or that's going to be your outcome. But just knowing now, like, if I had to do that, maybe I would go to counseling with my husband, or like to learn how to navigate a blended family, right?
Right.
Right.
Or ask some questions, so why not sit and bring the girls to the table and have the discussion, and talk about it. And and because it was over a 10, 15 year, 20-year period of time, after a while, I'm like, that's not energies. Yeah, it's just not energies I can spend trying to make that over there whole when I'm trying to, raise this child, was an older adult. I went through breast cancer, and I'm going, okay, this is how this is going to go. So you have to find a way that really makes it okay for you. So that's where we find ourselves. But I always say all is well. All is well.
Absolutely. I guess I'll jump in because I've lived both sides of the coin. I believe I've lived the majority of my life in blended families. So my mother is was remarried and has been married 3 times, and so I have 2 separate sets of, step brothers and sisters, who are my brothers and sisters. I love them just no different than my biological sister. So then I found myself being married twice. And so having lived the parenting in blended families. And so I think growing up in a blended family, and when I found myself being an adult and remarrying and having a blended family, I kind of thought I knew what to do. Like, I thought I learned some things from being a child in a blended family, and that was not the case. I don't think we did enough of discussions about how do we really navigate our blended family, having that open dialogue and communication with the other parents outside of our marriages, our marriage. And because there was some difficulty between my ex-husband and his former wife, and their communicating, and dissension kind of boiled down and influenced what we were doing in our lives, trying to, my son lived with us, but he had 2 children, from his previous marriage. And because they didn't get along, it was kind of hard to navigate, because I'm supporting you and I'm trying to hold down what we're doing here, but yet she's causing, some conflict. And it wasn't until they were older that things kind of settled down. But at that point, we were having difficulties of our own between ourselves and our marriage that, it impacted my son and his children in a different way. I think it took a while for things to kind of settle down, and and I was dealing with some of my own childhood trauma from being part of 2 different blended families, that I felt like it all came full circle. And it took me a while to even deal with all of that, my childhood issues, and then, the issues from 2 failed marriages. And so now I find myself in another relationship with my life partner. And again, blended family. He has 3 children, and I have a son. The beauty of this is that they're all grown except his youngest, who is 16, and 17. Let me take that back. If she heard me say 16, she'd have a fit. 17, And so it's a little different because the children are older and I can build my own relationship with them that is different from him. He doesn't have to have anything to do with my communication with grown adults. They're not little kids. But we've also spent a lot of time discussing how, you know, it's important that all of our children get along and how we navigate making sure that that blended family, we are all connected at all times.
Yes, it's
That's
my
wonderful.
turn. So I have a beautiful young daughter that you all will meet from my first marriage. And I am my husband's third wife. So you can imagine I gained a few children. The youngest ones were 10 going on 11 when we got together. And their mom had moved them to California. So their visits were like the whole summer or Christmas holidays, things like that. Not easy to fly 2 kids from California and back and all. And so in the beginning to them, it looked like dad's taking care of somebody else's daughter because my daughter was young too. They're like 18 months apart from the twins. They loved her, didn't have a problem with that. They did not like the mean old stepmom because I have rules, things the way my house is going to be done, things, you know, and they would come and just think, oh, I could just do this. I could do no. And I had to be the disciplinarian and everything. And because he wanted me to, I'm only going to see them a little while. So I got to be the good dad. I got to be the nice person and all. So they would go back home and, you know, their mom and I, we would talk and it was never a problem because she would just say, I know that, you know, we run our households differently. They're spoiled by me. Yes. Because they lived in with their grandmother and great grandmother. So they were just used to not having to do anything, no chores, all that kind of stuff. Well, that went on for a little while and then it got better, getting older. And if I tell you now, them kids who are now all adults, Ma, and they've all of them, as a matter of fact, 3 of them came to live with us at one point. The oldest son who's in the service by from his first wife, calls me mom, of course. And then he stayed here for about 2 years living with us just before he went into the service, just to get more connection with his father because he didn't have a lot of it when he was growing up. And then the twins separately, the boy came and lived with us for a while, and then the girl came and lived with us for a while. So as adults, mind you. So it was a rocky start, but I had support from their mom because she would just say, listen, you know, you got whatever Miss Juanita says, blah, 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 blah. And I can't even remember what age it came from. I shifted from Miss Juanita to Mom, but it warmed my heart. And if we didn't have to change for COVID, they all would have been at Kiana's wedding and everything. They had gotten the big formal invitations and all. And they were like, oh, my sister's getting married. Nah. Everybody's all excited. And they all have their own relationships, friendships, and connections too. And I'm just glad that beginning period didn't last for a long time because I have a lot of kids in my family. And I have a lot of what I call my extra nieces and nephews. Because if you're my girlfriend, then your kids are mine. They my nieces and nephews because my kids call my girlfriends auntie and uncles and stuff or whatever. So it actually hurt my feelings that they didn't like me in the beginning. But I realized it wasn't me. It was the divorce of their parents and not seeing their father as much. And I kept saying to him, I would tell him all the time, I'm like, you got to explain to them that California, and we're in Maryland, is a big expense. And, you know, they used to live in South Carolina. Going up and down the East Coast is nothing, but going across country is a big deal. So, but we got through it. We got through it. And I'm still here.
I think, Juanita, the beauty in what you said is that, you know, where you start is not where you finish.
Right.
And so we don't know that when we're in the thick of it.
Yep.
You know, and so you were fortunate to, you know, see the beauty of, you know, the struggle, and here you are at a place that has just worked out really very nicely, you know, for you. And so we all don't have those circumstances, but the children are the ones who struggle and don't always understand. I mean, even in my case, when I look at the two girls, they had a connection that was made from spending time really with their dad. But it really is them coming from a place of not understanding, and not even really ever sitting down talking with the girls. I'm so sure that my husband did not sit down and talk with them about what his circumstances were with their moms. They lived what they lived, but they never fully understand and had an opportunity to have, to really sit and just talk about it.
Yeah, that's great. I would say one of the blessings out of my experiences were the children were fine. The children got along with me. They got along with each other. It was the adults that caused more of the issues with how my blended family worked. The kids kind of, until this day, are still very close. My son, my two step children from my second marriage get along. He gets along with the whole entire family. They're still all they call cousins. Cousins Day, he's there. I'm Gigi to my two older grandkids. I see them regularly. Now, of course, it's FaceTiming and what have you. But the kids were the easy part. It was the adults, external adults who couldn't get along to make the proper decisions for how we navigated this blendedness.
Yeah.
And I think it's important too, you all mentioned, I guess, about how we as adults deal with those types of situations, because I can be honest, I remember when my son came home and he started talking about, dad's new girlfriend. And we no longer had feelings for each other. That wasn't even the issue. But so my husband remarried. He remarried before I did. And I remember, asking my son, I was like, so what do you call? What do you call your father's new wife? And he said, I call her mommy, her name. And so I guess I should have been okay with it, but that kind of hurt a little bit because it was still like mommy, whatever. And I was like, really? I was like, really, you do? I mean, not that I should have expected, I guess, anything any differently, but I have to admit, it did kind of hurt my feelings just a little bit. And then I think what happened was, what I remember is, whenever my ex would come and get, because we lived in different states, would come and get our son, I always wonder, why does she never come? Why has she never come down to meet me? I'd never spoken to her on the phone. She never came down. I was like, and then I think I was engaged at the time to my current husband. I was like, I don't think I've ever said anything bad about her or anything, but I would like to meet her. And so I think that I was kind of taken aback with that too. But I think at the time, I really wasn't thinking about how she might have felt about the whole situation too. Because honestly, it could have just been a situation where she just felt kind of awkward with everything that was kind of happening, and she just didn't feel comfortable. So I think it's interesting, all of our different experiences and how we navigate those experiences. And like I said, to go back, I guess what you said, Jeanette, I really didn't think about it at the time about, what this really is a good thing that my husband and my ex-husband get along so well. Mm-hmm. I really just in the moment, you don't even think about that. But that really, what I think that was the blessing. And I think what was the culmination of all of that is when my ex, he wrote this letter to my husband to really thank him for raising his son. And, you know, my son, his dad has always been in the picture, but I'm talking about like the day-to-day grind, the daily parenting. And he thanked my husband for that. And so, you know, I think until I knew about it, because my husband didn't tell me immediately. He kind of kept it to himself, and I really appreciated that. And so you really don't know sometimes what's going on behind the scenes with people, or how people really feel about these kinds of situations. So I think what Marcy said is really important. Like, sometimes we really don't think about, sometimes we need to talk, we need to communicate about how to navigate these types of situations.
Oh, Jeanette.
It
we
took a
can't-
little time to get to, you know, the Thanksgiving dessert, and sometimes Easter too. So it took, that is not, you know, that's not easy, depending on whatever the circumstances or situation. It was a lot of praying. I can't say that I was just like, oh yes, we're gonna get, you know, I had to, you know, pray, do a lot of praying. And I am so happy though to be in the place where I am, to say, like, you know, we are good friends, my ex-husband and I don't, you know, like, hey, let's have dinner or let's have dessert, whatever. It's good. But it does take a minute to get there. It's a process. You don't just automatically, whether you're, you know, on whatever side of the coin, you have to do a lot of praying and a lot of reflection and dig deep. You know, because we're human. So
Right.
that's the other thing. Whether
Right.
you pray, whether you go to therapy, whatever you have to do to make yourself whole so that you can make your family whole, right? And especially your children. That's most important, because we're grown, but we want to make sure our children are whole. You do what you have to do. So
Yeah, I think those are good points, because you have to unpack what got you to the place where you are.
yes.
You know, and you're not always, you know, you say, how'd I get here? So you have to spend some time, as you said, doing that reflection and you know, what brought me to this place, and then move to get to the next place where we all seem to be. And that comes with some time and prayer and lots of other stuff.
Maturity.
So how about
Just
you?
just age. No.
Yes.
Maturity.
Yes. I was on a car earlier, and we were talking about how grateful we were running a session. It was Thankful Thursday session through work, and just how grateful we were to be at a place where we can just stop and take a minute and say, oh, I got that. You know, just have the wisdom to kind of, you know, know it and know in your spirit that it's right and it's okay. So yes, age for sure.
So how do you navigate that car, I guess, as an adult?
Navigate blended family.
Yeah, because you said your father remarried, but you were an adult, but I think you still like deal with some,
Oh yeah,
you know,
no.
feelings and
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah, I've talked about that. I talked about that on a previous episode about how, for me, I had to go through a healing process with my own father when my parents divorced. But I was sitting here listening to you all, and it seems like that it seems that relationships are easier as you get older. But in my case, for me, I have no relationship with my father's wife or his family, and I believe it's all in the way things are presented. So the way the relationship with his new wife was presented to us was inappropriate. And so therefore, I have no relationship with her or her family. And these are people that I actually knew prior to them being married. So her daughter and I actually were friends growing up, but not knowing that my father was seeing her mother at the time. So afterwards, it put all of us in a different situation. And the best I can do is be respectful at this point. And the respect comes from me having respect for myself, to be honest with you. So I'm respectful to his wife, and we have a respectful relationship, I would say. But there's no socializing together. For instance, if I have events at my house, or if there's something involving me, she already knows she's not invited, or whether she knows or not, she's not invited. And it's
Whether
never,
she knows or not.
Whether she knows or
I don't know
not.
what-
I love it.
She
Whether
knows.
or not.
Right, she knows.
knows. Like,
Right.
Like, don't think you coming, boo.
Right, right,
Because mama's face is gonna be there.
right. I
Right.
mean, you know, it's never been a question. I don't discuss what they discuss. So all I know is he knows he's invited and he comes, and she's not, you know, she's not with him. So, and that's how we deal with it. We just move on. And like I said, I have a wonderful relationship with my father that came from healing, and we've moved on. It does not involve anyone on that side of the family. You know, if it's something for him, she will call me and invite me, and I will go because it's my father to support him. So if she invites me, I have attended events for him in his honor. But there's no socializing. I mean, you know, we don't socialize while we're there. We're cordial and at best, and that's that. And that's how we've navigated this point in our lives. We're respectful, and everybody has a level of respect, and that's the best that I think we can do at this point. So
Nothing like a little respect.
And nothing like a
Nothing like a little respect. There you go.
yeah, so that's how we handle it. But I do believe that it's all in how things are presented as well. I mean, if this had been a different situation and he had remarried under different circumstances, I personally love family. So the more the merrier. I think I would have been okay with a blended family. I also say for women, I think I would have been okay. And I wasn't in that situation, and who knows, but I love children. I think I would have been okay marrying someone if they had had children. Whereas I have girlfriends, some of them who I have had to pull them back and say, look, you're not just marrying him, you're marrying his children. So if you don't accept his children, I really don't suggest you get into or stay in this relationship, because I think it takes a special type of person to even, you're going to have trials and tribulations with it, but you at least have to be open to having whatever type of relationship and being the adult in that situation, because the child did not ask for any of that. So
Right.
That's so funny that you say that, Cara, because I'm gonna just talk about my stepson, my oldest son, as I call him. Because when I married his father, I knew my oldest son was not he lived with his grandmother, my ex's mother's house, and his mother was not in his life. And I knew that. And I kind of knew the situation, knew what it was. And so when my ex-husband and I got married, I said, well, Corey's gonna come and live with us, right? Because I was like, because this is what we're gonna do. And, and I developed a relationship. And so then Corey and I, over time, and we developed a good relationship, we were able to talk. And then I said so after like 2 birthdays, when his birthday is in November too, the same as mine. And every birthday, the 2 birthdays, when his mother never even reached out to him or called him, I actually had him to call, or I called her. And I told her to come to my house because I wanted to meet her. And we had a whole conversation. I told her that I'm not trying to be his mom. You are his mom. I said, but I am in this with you. She cried, she hugged me, we prayed together, like it was a whole nother thing. And she just appreciated me from then on out. And then later, Corey went back to developing a good relationship with his mom. And that's why when his mom died, he wanted me to be there, because I had been instrumental in helping them build their relationship again, right? And it wasn't easy. I mean, his father was harder on him sometimes than I was, and he loves his sister. They all look alike. My daughter's father, her brother, they all look alike. They like 3 peas in a pod. But, and I still support him to this day, just in terms of, of that whole situation. So, but I took the lead on it. I don't know that she wanted to necessarily do it, but I just took the lead on it. So.
Talk about a strange dinner. My outlaws, they're older, they're like in their 80s now, but when they first met my husband, because I think I told y'all last week that Kiana was really kind of young and everything. And they were like, she called my mother. So my mother, my ex-mother-in-law calls my mother and says, who is that man she got around my baby? And she's like, well, actually, we knew that man from 20 something years ago when they were in high school. She said, and he's okay. We're now at a point where we go to dinner at my mother-in-law's, my ex-mother-in-law's house sometimes, my husband and I, and she will cook for us and stuff. It is hilarious. Now she's a better mother-in-law to me than when I was married to her son.
I'm still very close with Richie's parents too. I mean, we usually spend his parents, I think maybe they miss one Thanksgiving at my house.
At your
At
house.
my house.
Right.
Yeah.
They come to your house for Thanksgiving, not their son's.
Yes. So they did one with Rich one year, and then his father was like, right on back over, sir. Right. So my mother and my mother, because my father has passed away, and Rich's parents are very close. Like we get together, we have a good time. And then every New Year's Day, my mother and I and Niall, my daughter, we go to his parents. So we're still very close, to this day. And they're in their 80s too, mid 80s. Family is family.
Right. I was going to say the other point that you and Juanita also talked about, blended family. There's in-laws, and then there's parents and grandparents. Mm-hmm. And some of those blended families, or the breaking up of those blended families, oftentimes, like, what do you mean the two of you aren't together? But wait, we've got our own connection that we've built. So right. What do you mean that they're not? You guys aren't. What about? Well, how's this all working out? So it also, while it affects the children, it also affects other family members too. That again, until the situation, comes up, you just don't really realize the impact that it has on you, or how connected another family member was to, the spouse or the children.
Right.
Yeah, our children help to keep us all connected too. Like, my son especially. Because my children have two different fathers, so they connect. So those men, as in Lisa's situation, they get along great. They always have got along very, very well. And when it's Christmas time and my daughter's father's bringing a gift for her, he's also bringing a gift for my son, and my son's father does the same thing for my daughter. And so one time there was an event where it's a family event, an organization I'm in, and the dads were there. Well, guess what Regina did? Because you know how Regina goes, Cara.
Yeah,
both of the dads came.
That's right.
Both of the dads came, and everybody was like, what, Regina, what? I was like, it's no issue. Y'all go on, because y'all have your husbands here that are fathers to your children. These are the fathers of my children. And so they're just going to be here. And they were fine. And if I had had a new boyfriend, he'd have been there too. No.
Then you might have had some problems.
No, I probably would have had some problems.
Yeah, no,
right.
You can't do that.
Like, that would have been like, people would have been like, wait a minute.
Right, they would be showing off. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but
I think though, to your point about the older generation or other relatives having connections, I really just think, especially like with grandparents, they're like, if y'all want to act crazy, that's fine, but we're going to do what we want to do. We're going to have dinner with who we want to have dinner with. And too bad, this is how we moving. And I know for sure that's how Richie's parents were. Like, listen, it's stupid, but it is what it is. We enjoy having dinner with y'all, and that's where we're going. So deal with it.
Right. And we have to be okay with that, because they've had relationships. You have to honor those relationships too. They're like, well, just because you all
right,
like stupid too. We've been doing this for 25, 30 years.
Right.
We're not
changing. Right.
We're going to hang out with who we hang out with. Y'all go ahead and do what you do. And then you have to work through that too, because you're going, oh, I didn't consider that. I didn't think about that, because I hadn't had that experience before. You're like, but okay, but it actually, to me, it makes it easier, because they're saying this is a comfort level for us, and we're really good with this the way it is.
we have to honor it. So
Exactly.
But I mean, it's a blessing that you do, because you don't necessarily have to have his parents for Thanksgiving. That's just the beauty of your relationship with
Mhm.
them. That could be tricky for some people out there. I mean, having your
well, I figured it was tricky for him. To be honest, like the first Thanksgiving, I was like, y'all can't come to my like that would hurt. That I had to have a conversation with his parents. I was like, y'all can't come to my house. That's gonna hurt your son's feelings. They were both like, all right. I said, just do, I mean, you can't do that. So, and then the next year, like y'all know, well, Lisa, Cara, and Marcy, Rich is very lighthearted. He was like, look, my father said he's going to his daughter's house. So I guess he coming to y'all. Can we come over for dessert? And I was like, fine. And so, and the other thing too is his wife and my mother get along beautifully. Like,
Yeah.
beautifully. Do you understand? Hugs, kisses, or whatever.
New wife?
My ex-husband's wife and my mother get along lovely. And so when Cara saw them interact one time, she was like, all right, I guess I got to get myself together. I'm like, yes, get yourself together. You know what I mean? So talk about blended family. My mother, you know what I mean, is good with, so it is what it is. You just never know how people gel and get along. And at the end of the day, as you said, Cara, family is great. So you have to make it work. You have to at least try. That's my belief, to make it work if you can, as long as people are respectful. That respect thing is huge. It can work.
Yeah. Lisa, I thought about what you said about your son going with his father and his father's new wife, and what do you call her, and that type of thing, because I went through that same thing when my daughter's father got married. I was like, well, what do you call her? She was like, I call her Miss So-and-so. And so, but Miss So-and-so and I don't want to say all that, but she and I have a great relationship. She gets all this. And I told my daughter, you are going to be respectful of her because she cares about you and your well-being. And so that's important to me, as you're my child, and my child, we gonna be respectful. Like you said, Carr, respectful. She don't have to be your best friend. You don't have to call her mama. You don't have to do all of that, but you do have to be respectful. You have to say thank you, because she does go out of her way to do a lot of things for you and hold your father accountable for some things that he doesn't do.
My daughter wasn't that lucky.
Oh, okay.
My ex-husband remarried before I did too, and then they moved to Ohio after they had their child. And when my daughter would go to visit, every time she came home, it was something. It was always just something crazy. And so to this day, it's like that's my father's wife. That's Miss Tiffany. And even at the wedding, it was a little awkward at some points. She could take her or leave her, but now her mother and we get along. Like, we were texting the other day, checking up on each other and stuff. She says, I don't understand what's wrong. She's a long time ago. She said, I don't understand what's wrong with my daughter. She said, because I divorced her father when she was young and she was, in a blended situation. She's like, it just means Kiana has more people to love her. And I was like, you got that right. So that's her extra bonus grandmother. But
maybe
the
she,
new wife, nope.
maybe his new wife, because she grew up in a blended family, was still dealing with some of the trauma from that childhood, and that was unresolved for her, possibly. Who knows?
Possibly, yeah.
Do we have any questions, Cara?
No, we don't. We don't have any questions at this point.
Oh.
Anyone else have any thoughts on this blended family? This was interesting for me, just to hear your story.
Tough topic. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
because people's emotions are, you're dealing with different layers. So you're dealing with children who are looking at adult business, right? That's the thing.
Good.
Like the children don't understand what they're seeing, right? The dynamics between a husband and a wife is not for children. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important for us to figure out how we navigate it in a way that best keep children whole. And when you have a mother or a father that, for lack of a better word, is throwing salt in the game and discussing grown folk business with the children, that complicates the situation too. So that's one layer, dealing with children. And then you have adults that don't have the tools to navigate, right? Bring their own baggage, all of those things, make it challenging. And then just raw emotion. Somebody, from the other side of the fence might still be in love with it. You just don't know what you're dealing with. It's very complicated. So.
And that's funny you said that, Jeanette, because I remember probably a few years ago, my son is 25 now, but I'll never forget a few years ago, and he asked me, he was like, you know what? You never told me, why did you and my father get a divorce? And I was like, what? What? Because we kind of move through our lives.
Yes.
Honestly, your kids are just, they're just kind of in the background. Like you said, that's adult stuff. That's grown folk stuff. And you don't even really internalize how that affects your kids. And I'm thinking, if he's asking me that question at 20 plus, what he must have been thinking
all that time,
even all of these years, like how do I even unpack and process this, my new father, my father's new wife, like all of these things, because I would have never thought in a million years that, honestly, that he even cared. And it's just like what happened?
One thing I want to say about that is, I think that any child, I'll even say anyone who's been through or is part of a blended family, there's some form of trauma associated with that. To get to that blended family, there was trauma. So, I mean, it's a blessing that he came to you with that question now, or recently at least, and was able to get to that point, because we all, every Black person has trauma in it has some form of trauma in their life anyway. But until we unpack that trauma and deal with it and address it, then we're carrying all of this around. And that's part of the reason why we're having these discussions, so that people can start to unpack some of that trauma and get to a place where they're whole. And for him to say that to you, and it's funny because Lisa's son is my godson. So that's interesting that you had that perspective, that you never thought he cared. Whereas as his godmother and things that he shared with me, I always knew that he cared about that. So that's what's so very different, that he, as a child, he cared, and he knew he was loved, and he knew that, he had the support of both of his fathers. And as his godmother, I could not have been more happy with the way that he was raised by his, I'll call him bonus father, because he was truly his dad, in the day to day, and taking care of him, and couldn't have loved him more than if he had, if he was his own blood. But as a child, I always knew that he cared about that. And, so it's interesting that, you said that just now, because I'm just happy that he came to that point at 20 some years old to be able to address that with you, because so many of us carry that around forever, and we may not even get the chance to, our parents may go on to glory, and we might not have had the chance to ask those questions or unpack that and be able to deal with that in life. So, that's a hard thing. And that trauma, like I said, anybody becoming a blended family, there was some kind of trauma that caused that blended family. So
that kind of gives me a kind of a question for, do you offer that discussion to your child, and at what age, about the divorce or separation from their father? Or do you wait for them to come to you? Or do you know what I'm saying? Because yes, Lisa, it is a blessing that he came to you, because he could be 40 and 50 years old dealing with what we talked about, childhood trauma, that he never voiced or got the opportunity to. I know that my daughter has asked, she's 17. I mean, I think a couple years ago, she asked about why her father and I got divorced. And I was very honest with her. And so my son, he has not asked, but I think where I am is I'm waiting for him to ask, and I'm not offering it up. So I would like to know where other mothers would be, or
I think it depends on the circumstance. If I looked at my situation again, I did not have a connection with the mothers, and I would say my husband didn't really have a close connection with them. His older daughter, yes, because he was married to her at one time. But I think in that situation, offering up a conversation, communication probably would have been helpful, even when they were younger, or at what age exactly, not sure, but clearly I think it would have been helpful for them as well as for the whole family dynamics if there was a conversation, especially because it was a blended family with two mothers, and those two mothers weren't connected, and so the new wife also was not connected, and they were girls. To me, I think it would have been helpful to sit and have those conversations for him to have with them, so that they clearly understood, and then for us to also communicate about being a blended family. At least for me, I think that would have been helpful.
That's good, Marcy.
I agree. My son actually came to me as well. He's 26, and his perspective, he asked me lots of questions, and his perspective was, he really wished that I had some discussions along the way with him. And it kind of goes back to Jeanette talked about, you're busy trying to navigate the adult business and feel like the kids should be in the background and be in the kids section. You don't want to share so much because you're navigating all the adult business. But I think looking back, I feel like I did a little disservice to my son by not opening up and discussing some of the things and trying to shield him from some of the things that were going on, because having discussions with him in his 20s, I realized that he realized a lot more than I realized he realized, so to speak. So he was seeing it in the perspective out of the eyes of a young child, where he needed me to kind of give him some guidance or some encouragement and some support of what he was seeing and trying to break down in his young mind. And if I would have just had some of those open dialogues with him about what was going on, I might have saved us some therapy dollars. But again, I feel, I'm a person that believes that, everything happens the way God intends for it to happen. And although I look back and think and want, wonder if I did things different, would I have saved us some of that trauma that we have endured. But I keep going back to the fact that, we endured those things, and that's what has molded and shaped us to the people that we are today. And, I have a butterfly behind me because I love butterflies, and I love the whole concept of transformation. And I feel like that we navigate life and we're constantly transforming and morphing into who God wants us to be. And it's by the experiences and by the things that we go through that gets us closer to the place that he intended for us to be.
Awesome. That's awesome. Those are awesome.
I did share. I offered up to my daughter. At the same time, I was also telling her that I was marrying Joseph. So we kind of had a couple of conversations around, you're old enough now to understand why I was divorced. And I want you to know now that I'm getting ready to remarry. And this man is going to be, in our space, living with you and raising you, because he is there for the day to day. So I think she really appreciated it for me, getting that from me, and she was okay. She was okay with it. She also wrote him a letter when she moved out. When she wrote both of us letters, but she wrote him one and said, you know, thank you for showing me what a woman is supposed to accept, you know, for love from a man as a husband or something, or show me what I should look for. So
So for me, Niall has never really asked me. She's a very interesting being. She's very observant, um, very in tune to, you know, what's going on, but she won't always say a lot. Over the years, I have said things like, just from my own, like, mother's intuition, like, marriage is a great institution. I do believe that. And I have shared that with her. And I said, just because your father and I divorced doesn't mean that that marriage isn't a good thing. That's one. Secondly, that he's not a great father, right? He may not have been the husband for mommy, but he's still a great father and a great man, right? So I have been consistent with that. In terms of like her, she's not asked like, well, why did you guys divorce? And I think, you know, she saw things through her lens as a child, and maybe when she's ready to ask the question, because at some point she probably will ask questions, then we'll have a conversation. But I'm not going to sit down and say, this is why we divorced, and get into that. I think I need for her to come to ask me, because then I know she's ready to receive whatever I have to say, right?
Yeah.
But my message has always been clear, because she has role models in her life of what a solid marriage looks like. She's seen that. And so I wanted her to understand, again, marriage is wonderful, right? And she's like, I know, mommy, I know, so just keep saying these things, because the other thing too, in like blended families and also divorce, and I know that we're going to talk about that in another topic, but sometimes too, kids don't always understand, and they take sides, and they damage relationships with parents that they need both their parents. Absolutely. And so for me, because I had a great relationship with my father, it was important for me that she maintained a great relationship with hers. And so almost to a fault, and that's a whole other conversation. I'll say that's another story. But yeah, so again, when she asks me, then we'll have a conversation. But until then, I just offer what I offer to try to make sure that she's still open to marriage and relationships in that way.
We have some comments now. I'll read them to you. The first one says, asking questions and getting clarity is crucial in relationships. Then we have another comment that says, yes, both of my parents were married multiple times. My sister and I were members of multiple blended families. I never asked my parents why they divorced. While I think we both turned out fine, and this is the problem, I can't read here it is. While I think we both turned out fine, perhaps we would have benefited from knowing what prompted the breakup. And I believe that, well, yes, this person's father is now deceased, so she wouldn't be able to ask those questions of him. So that's why, it's a blessing that these children are coming to you and able to get these answers while we're still here with them. And then the final comment is, if you're blessed to still have living parents, ask every question you ever wanted answered. Her parents are both deceased. That made this comment. So very good comments, and I agree with all of what was said here.
That's a great
I think it's, Jeanette, you said something that's very important, and it has been a foundation. And I believe that I never talked ill of my exes to my children. There are things that they found out about their fathers as time has gone on. Mm-hmm. And I knew it, but I wasn't going to tell you.
You had to find out on your own.
That he wasn't going to show up. But, I never did those type of things, and I think that's been very important to my children's growth and development as well, with their relationships with their fathers, so that they they don't have my point of view. They have their own point of view.
Yeah.
And I do talk highly about marriage as well. I talk highly. Look, my son said a couple years ago, he said, Mom, he said, we should move to Florida and have a big house, because my son spends a week with his dad and he spends a week with me. Lisa knows because the way we were picked up, he was picked up at preschool. But anyway, so he said, we should move to Florida, Mommy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what are you going to do with Daddy? How are you going to do? You're not going to be able to do a week with Daddy. He's like, oh, Daddy could come with us. I said, and live where? And live where?
We blending.
On the other wing.
That's what he
Right.
said. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work out too well, son. He was like, why, Mommy? I was like, yeah, okay. Okay, well, we'll just stay here and just you'll go back and forth to Daddy's house. That'll work out fine right now.
Yeah. Yeah, this is tough.
Nope.
So now, did any of you have, when you remarried? No, Marcy did. You said you had a son, correct, Marcy?
We had a son, yes. So we got together, we had a son. So his daughters were, I don't know, they were younger. I don't know, they were young teens. Yeah. So yeah, his children now are probably around 40. My son is 23.
Oh, okay.
So his girls were older.
Was there, I guess because your husband already had children, was that something that, I guess, did you all decide to have kids? Like, was it because you wanted to have kids, the both of you wanted to have kids, or how did you?
How long is this session?
Oh,
That sounds
Lord.
like,
Okay,
uh-oh.
Marcy. Lord, we need to have a whole nother session. That's what you're saying, Marcy. Okay.
So I did say before that we were older, right? So
Right.
no, we didn't plan to. I know that he didn't want to have more children, so no.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it was after that storm of, I don't know, whatever the year was. But so no, we really didn't plan to have children. I've had that conversation with my son. So no, it wasn't a planned thing like, yes, let's get together and let's start this new blended family. No. That was not the conversation. And so if you know me from, before when I got married earlier, I was a single girl having a great single world. And I was really, really okay with that.
Ooh,
And,
Okay.
single world. All right, Miss Marcy.
and I was having a good time. And I was not opposed to marriage. You go through those phases of, okay, well, yeah, maybe I'll get married. And then after a while, it's like, if it doesn't happen, I'm good. If I don't have children, I'm good. And so we had dated off and on for some years and had just like, really, when we got back together this time, we actually talked about, all right, if this doesn't work this time, we just not gonna keep doing this dance. And so we got back together and things were working out. I don't think we spent the amount of time that we could have and should have in talking about a blended family, but here we are again, back at that, navigating through it. What about even talking about it? What is that going to look like? And for me, it also took on many stages. At one time, one of his daughters was living with us for a minute. A
quick
I'm
minute.
clear because that phrase you said earlier, like I gotta get that phrase again. A minute.
So that's it. It just didn't work out. I mean, to the point where his oldest daughter, I remember calling her mother and saying, "How can I get her to you?" Because it just wasn't working for me. It needs to work. So it went through so many ebbs and flows, and they all weren't really great ones. And it wasn't ones that I just thought that I could or should live with. And again, my son was so much younger. And as a matter of fact, the older daughter had a child. So, and she and my son are like 3 or 4 months apart. A delightful young lady. And we actually connected with the granddaughter and had a nice little, because again, the granddaughter, which is really my son's niece, the uncle, right?
Right.
So the two of them are about 3 or 4 months apart, and we connected with her when she was younger over the years. She was not living with her mother at the time, so it just really didn't work out, and then the back and forth, and then at some point the other one didn't live with us. She was really with her mother and would come over and spend some time, but it just wasn't working for me, and I just clearly it just wasn't working. And so when something's not working, then it just not trying to put time. Yeah, it's just not working, literally. So it took on a lot of different, but we never really planned to to do the family planning and extend the blended family.
I love it, Marcy.
Lisa, in your case though, you all did plan, right? You all planned to have a family.
We did, and it's funny because I think at the time I almost felt like obligated, like I'm getting remarried. I really think that this is something that I really should think about. And so we decided, we decided to have, more children. But I think like Marcy said, that even, you even go through stages with that, because I remember when we had my middle child, and my son and my middle child are, I think, 11 years apart. And I remember when I had my middle daughter, and just once again, my son, he had to go through that process with, so now he's gonna have a younger sibling,
right?
How do kids navigate that? And then you also never think about, so now not only is he not the only child anymore, but my mom and her new husband have a child of their own. Mm-hmm. So how do I fit in? Even if I think we don't give our kids a reason to feel like, they're being alienated or they are being left out, they feel that way. They do. They have to process those, those emotions and those feelings about, well, you get to live with your biological parents. And I think that's where all of that, all of those notions about well, why didn't you and my dad get divorced? And I think that's where a lot of that trauma kind of, starts, starts festering, just in your head. What is it about this relationship that's so great that didn't work out with my, my dad or my mom? Mm-hmm. Why? And so we did have to go through that. And it's weird because one of the things we went through is, so my husband's dark skin, and my son is light skin. He's probably, I guess, Regina Carr's complexion. And so one of my daughters.
Look, no, I'm just kidding. Look, go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
One of my daughters is light, and one is brown skin, dark, kind of dark brown skin. And so when you see all of us together, and you see my son who's very fair skinned, he even went through that whole colorism thing. When we are together as a family, I know people are thinking, I'm not a part of this family. Mm-hmm. So, it's just, there are so many facets that you just have to, that you don't even think about until it hits you in the face. And I'm thinking, nobody's thinking about that. And then you kind of think about it, well, they might be, they might be. I don't know. And it's probably because that's not what I'm thinking doesn't mean that that's not what other people might be thinking.
Right. I think you raise a good point because also even that they're raised differently.
Yep.
So the children are looking at, my son was raised differently than the girls are raised. Had some advantages that maybe they didn't have. So I think they're even looking at the lens, well, look at how he's raised. We weren't raised like that. We didn't get that. We didn't have that. So there's also that, as you said, like the kids are, you think like they are really paying attention as
Yep.
we are just moving and maneuvering through this, you know, doing what we're doing, raising our children the way we think they should be raised, you know, however they come into the situation at that time. You know, so I know that that the girls were raised differently, again, by two different women and raised differently, even though they might have spent time with him. But then I know that my son's lifestyle was very different than theirs, you know, and there could be a whole issue and resentment around how that plays out.
That's a very good point. Like I said to you, my son goes with his dad every other week. My daughter may not see her father, has sometimes not seen her father for 3 months. So so my children really have grown up as only children. They only grew up being brother and sister in the household 2 weeks out of the month. Otherwise, my son is with his dad, who is as an only child, and my daughter is with me as an only child, you know, on those other 2 weeks. And I do think that my daughter has some, you know, feelings about that. Right. So, you know, yeah, you never know what children are going through with those kinds of things.
That's true.
That is an interesting dynamic, Regina, with your kid, you know, how your kids grew up.
Yeah.
You know, be interesting to hear their perspective as they get, you know, older enough to talk to you about it too, like being siblings and not being able to be together all the time. You know, that's interesting.
Yeah. They you know, and I feel like they've navigated through it, but I don't know necessarily all of the impact. I know that a lot of times when my son would come from his dad's, like he and my daughter would fight a lot that odd week, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh. But, you know, so anyway. Carl, we have another guest on.
We do. When you said children, I was like, oh, we have a guest. We have a child of one of our
Oh,
It's beautiful.
the time that we are going to share our Black-owned, female-owned business, and we are blessed to have Juanita's daughter. So I'll let her introduce her daughter to everyone.
So this is my one and only biological. Her name is Kiana Paul now, Mrs. Kiana Paul.
all right.
Ooh,
And,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
class of 2014 Poly alum as well. She, as growing up, I always knew she was going to be some sort of an artist or something, but I was like, you can't be an artist because you're not going to make any money. Like maybe go into architect or something or whatever. But anyway, you know, kids going to do what they're going to do. But she's surpassed me at that age. They got 2 houses, had put on this fabulous wedding. And now she and her best friend are putting together their creative juices. And I'm gonna show y'all real quick something. Well, I'll wait till she talks and I'll show y'all some of the stuff I have on. Kiana Paul.
Hi, yes, my name's Kiana Paul. I own a business with my best friend Grace. We are the owners of Savvy QG. We've been best friends since, I want to say like the 5th grade now. It's been a couple years. This originally actually started off, we were going to start a YouTube channel together, but now we did open a clothing business. Basically our brand, we wanted to be able to allow women of color to feel beautiful and feel confident in the clothes that they wear. And some of our portions of our clothing, we're actually donating to different organizations. So we have 2 items on our site right now that we're donating to organizations too.
Nice.
That is awesome.
Awesome. Now, what's the name of your business again?
It's Savvy QG, SAVVY
Okay. And what's the website? How do we reach you?
www.savvyqg.com. And we can also be located on Instagram. It is savvy_QG.
Awesome.
Talk about that one sweatshirt. Did you have one with you?
Yes. So this one is I'm so glad you stayed. And so a portion of the portion of our profit, we're actually donating back to the Trevor Project. They're basically an organization that's dedicated to providing crisis intervention and suicide prevention.
Wow.
Awesome.
Nice.
Nice.
Very
I always like to ask the question, what sizes do you?
Right.
Right now we're doing from size small to 2XL. We're trying to carry more sizes, hopefully in the future too.
I'm a Taurus. I got my mask from her.
Oh,
Like it. I'm a Taurus too. I like it.
Oh, good. And then,
Oh, I like it.
Nice.
not now, Karen, talk about that one.
I think that one pretty much speaks for itself.
Ooh, I need that shirt. Not now.
Are all of these items on your website?
Yes, they are.
Awesome.
That is awesome.
Oh, and the hoodie, I have one right now. We're actually coming out with this one soon.
I like it. I can see it on. It's nice. The hoodie is fabulous, actually.
I like that.
Something else.
Art by Grace.
Right. And so, Kiana, the very first one you did with the afro, the hair,
Yeah.
because she drew it, and then we said, this needs to go on something.
Wow.
Very nice.
It's called Life of Power.
very nice.
Very, very
Your
nice.
your website now. Nice.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and your best friend. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
I'm following you on Instagram.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, Miss Marcy. Oh, Miss Marcy on Instagram. Okay, Miss Marcy. Look, I'm getting ready to follow Savvy QG too.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, sweetie.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck.
Congratulations again.
She texted me and she was like, I'm listening, I'm watching. I was like, oh, you hear me talking about you.
Yes.
Savvy QG.
I don't know, maybe, do we want to ask her anything about her blended experience?
Well, I did, but I didn't want to be the one to ask for her money.
Well, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if she wants to talk about it, if you feel comfortable talking about it, sweetheart.
I've had a great experience, I'd say. It was weird at first for me, because I do have two blended families. I just didn't really know where I fit into either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard at first, but now that I'm older, I kind of understand everything more. Yeah, it's good. I have more family to love me, more family to spend time with. I think it's a blessing, honestly.
That's awesome.
And she believes in the institution of marriage.
Obviously so.
Right.
Your marriage, that's awesome too. That you know, we'll have to bring you back one day when you feel comfortable to talk about getting married at a young age and what you've learned from your experiences. So
Yes,
awesome.
thank you.
We are so honored to meet you. We're so honored to have you on. And I can't wait to go and purchase some items.
Thank you so much.
I every week as we have businesses on, I try that week to go and purchase an item. So I'm excited. I saw a lot of pink items, and that's my favorite color. So
Yes.
I know there's stuff on there that I'll be purchasing.
Is it all adults? I know my daughter said she wanted some cool hoodies. The 10-year-old.
Oh yes, we carry all sizes. So
Oh, okay. Let me look.
I like the one you have on. I'm gonna stalk your Instagram and wait for it to come out. I really like it.
I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
And all their stuff is their own original artwork.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Very talented.
Wow.
Well, ladies,
And,
it's been another blessed Thursday, and I like to say that we hope we're blessing someone else, but I have to say I was truly blessed tonight. You all really blessed me with this conversation, and I do hope that we were a blessing to others tonight. And we're going to take a break next Thursday for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back in a couple of weeks, two Thursdays, and we'll be talking about self-care and how everyone made out on their self-care challenge. So that should be an interesting discussion. I just am so thankful that all of you all joined us. And Marcy, thank you for jumping on. We know
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marcy.
I so appreciate all of you ladies. It's been a blessing.
and Marcy, just know that you will be back because we've already talked about having some of the village moms. I've been talking about the village moms.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime. Glad to come anytime. I'm sure there's probably almost not many topics that I couldn't talk about.
that is true.
We always say that this discussion is open to anyone that wants to join us. So we will give out the Zoom link and we will share the topic, at least in advance. We already know that we're taking a break next week and the following week will be about self-care. So anybody that wants to join us, we are open to whoever wants to come on. This discussion is for us to just talk and just be like we're sitting around in somebody's living room having a conversation. So the more the merrier. You don't even have to tell us you're coming in advance if you have the link already. Just show up and we'll let you in and we're here. So, but for now, we just are so thankful for everyone who listened to us this evening. Please share this with your friends and family. We just want it to be a blessing to someone. And I am so thankful for all of you ladies who have come on this journey with me. I started this conversation with Jeanette probably in late summer about possibly doing this, and to see all of you all here today, I'm like, wow, this has blessed me so much. So I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Anyone else want to say anything before we go tonight?
Please be safe with the holiday.
Yeah.
Wear your
Yeah.
mask, social distance,
Yeah.
wash your hands.
Yeah.
We all want to be safe. And I think that is really, really important. And of course, we pray before, but I pray that we have a peaceful transition, that we have a peaceful time, and that healing comes to our country at this time.
Yes.
Because we need it.
Amen.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm going to end the live, but if you ladies will stay on for a few seconds after, we'll just regroup for a few minutes. But thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. And as we've all said, be safe and continue to pray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Mhm.
Facebook land.
Bye.
I love your little puppy. He's so cute.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,